This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask with your host, Dr. Judith Briles. On the show today, you'll find out where book publishing is going and how to take advantage of it. How to identify and avoid publishing predators. What opportunities are emerging as the book trade evolves in new forms. How to avoid losing money and much, much more. Join us now as a variety of publishing pros will deliver insights and strategies to take the author to the next level of publishing. It's your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Brought to you by AuthorU and the Book Shepherd. And now, here's your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of AuthorU, your guide to book publishing. Throughout it, I will share ahas, insights, and tips to enhance and support your book publishing journey. My goal is to always support you in your book in the process. Now, if you're on Twitter, hey, why don't you connect with me on my handle, which is @MyBookShepherd. And if on Facebook, why don't you join my book publishing group to share your news, to ask questions. So let's get started. Today, we're going to talk about what I call the cash cow two-step. And I started doing the cash cow two-step, certainly without calling it that, and even knowing what in the heck I was doing back in the mid-70s when a group, I lived in Northern California at the time, a group of women asked me if I could come out and talk about money. I was a financial planner. I hadn't even written a book yet. I didn't know I was going to write a book. And they just wanted to get some information about investing. Now, there was someone else who was supposed to speak, another woman who was in the insurance area, and that she couldn't go because her husband would let her go out at night by herself. So yours truly got it. And I did, so green, so naive. I knew nothing about speaking and how to present. Handouts, what's that? So many things I screwed up on. And yet I connected. And I found I know a lot of stuff. I really know a lot of stuff. And in fact, it propelled me to approach someone who was involved with programming at a local community college saying, and pitching, doing a program called Women in Money. Again, knowing nothing about how to put a course together. But I figured I had a lot to say and I knew a lot. And I turned it into an all-day Saturday program that was consistently sold out. And pretty soon the women said, can we bring our husbands? So that's how I started in speaking. So I got paid for the class, okay? And actually, I started attracting more and more clients. I didn't know about this term called lead magnet. Nothing. So naive. Time passed on, or I should say marched on. And in 1981, I took that class and I turned it into a book called The Woman's Guide to Financial Savvy. And that really expedited the transition from being the financial advisor into a speaker. And then 2 years later, something else happened to me, that one of my partners in the financial area stole a lot of money. And I lost $1 million in the process. I lost my home. I lost everything, even the cars. And from that, I had to step in to try to save the project that my dear friend and partner had embezzled the money from. And my name was on the financial forms. So I went back to school and earned my doctorate. And that became the tipping point from leaving talking about money and teaching women about money and strategies and how to be financially independent to dealing with ethics. It's not good to steal, but also conflict resolution. And my doctorate was within ethics. Do women undermine other women? My partner was a good friend, and a female. And I did a national survey on it, which became extraordinarily controversial. And from that, I was bombarded from women's groups, from associations, and eventually female-dominated healthcare saying, we need you. And it turned into a 30-year career of working with hospitals, with nursing associations, with so many, because I could identify the toxic person in the nanosecond usually. But also I can, because of my financial background, I could crunch the numbers to show what in the heck was going on and what the true cost was to the organization. So that's where we started in this little thing, which became truly a cash cow for me and supported my kids through school, got us back on track. Eventually we could buy a house again. I mean, it was the turning point when I lost everything, including my health, and in the middle of it with cancer, but in the middle of it, my 19-year-old son also died. So it was a dark, dark cloud, but in there was seeds. And from that, it evolved into just speaking full time. So, and then the next pivot point happened for me in 2006 when I made a decision, because I'd always helped people with books because I thought that they were so important. And I wasn't consulting, I wasn't doing anything, but I was talking, I was showing, I was doing workshops, I was anywhere. Just come pick my brain, I'll help you out, I'll introduce you to my agent. At that time, I was with the William Morris Agency. I will help you. You've got a book in you, I will help you get it out. In 2006, I decided this is what I want to do the rest of my life, which is now what I love doing, is showing people how to write books, to market books, and get them out. Along the way, the number one way to sell your books is through your mouth, your words, your wisdom, how sage you are, strategies you have. I don't care if you're writing fiction or nonfiction. It's the number one way to move them, because when you make that connection with someone, they want more. They want to take you home. And understand this, books are an impulse buy. Now, the grand news, the data that's been coming out as we pass through this first quarter of 2021 is book sales are way up. And that's a happy dance for me, because I believe in lifelong learning. I just think books are your portal. Print books were up over 8% in doing it. So when you're thinking of books, don't just think of a print book or an ebook or an audio book or whatever kind of book comes along. You really need to think as an author, you do all of them. And you may just be a print person. I'm just a print person, but I sure do ebooks and I do audiobooks. You may just like to listen because you're out walking or you're jogging or you're exercising or you're on a road trip, or just, this is the way you like to listen, right? But other people out there like the print book or the ebook. So you've got variables that you can take advantage of. But between those covers is amazing information, is amazing storytelling. And people want to see it, to experience it, to have you, whether we have this hybrid type of speaking now that COVID brought about, so that whatever you do, and I will tell you, it took me a lot of work to convert 3 of my 2-day intensives, the book publishing unplugged, the social media unplugged, which was a new unplugged I did, to the book marketing unplugged. It took me I can't even tell you how many hours to convert 16 hours of class time into 9 hours that I could deliver online virtually. Now, I still had to make a workbook. I believe every speaker, by the way, write this down. Wherever you speak, I don't care if it's virtually, I don't care if it's in person, I don't care if there's 10 people there, I don't care if there's 5,000 people there. Have something physically that they can have in their hands that has your contact information, your name, your website, your email. If you're doing a keynote speech, and we'll get into the difference of those during our break. If you're having a keynote speech, the title of the speech, maybe your logo or some image that relates to that, maybe your book cover, and then your key points as they come along there. So, and not, it could be just a couple of lines. It could be a one line. It could be 4 words. I don't care what it is, but just something that they can fill in and keep notes. If you're doing it virtually, instruct them before they start to download it, so they have it. So those are the things that you want to look at and take advantage of in that process. And it separates you from the newbie to the professional. So I always have it in color. I print it when I'm in person. That handout is on everybody's chair. So they have it to pick it up before they sit down, and they're starting to look over it. And I also have other stuff too. But that's important to do. So make sure that you have a handout. That's one of my golden rules that you must do in the process. And make sure you put a copyright date. So whatever the year is, your name, and add the words all rights reserved. Honor your intellectual property. Protect your intellectual property. I cannot stress that enough in this process. All right, so we're coming up to our first break. When we come back, we're going to kind of get into some of the nitty gritty. We'll talk about the structuring, some pitching ideas of how that comes across, and get you started. And by the way, you don't start setting up speaking gigs after your book's out. I mean, that's a continuation. You start doing it before you ever have a book in hand. We're going to be right back. This is Judith Briles.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Is there a book in you? Or another? AuthorU shows you how to create, develop, and publish your book without being hoodwinked. If you already have a book out, you will find a supportive and brainstorming community that is connected and creative, no matter where you live. AuthorU brings in national experts for its book camps and annual AuthorU extravaganza. It has regular meetings and delivers webinars for its members on timely topics. Through AuthorU's extensive network, members enjoy exclusive benefits, including significant discounts for a variety of services necessary to publishing. AuthorU is the premier authoring resource in the country, creating community, education, guidance, vision, and success for the serious author. If you want to create a book that has pizzazz, punch, and panache, AuthorU is for you. Timely author and publishing tips and articles are posted on its social media platforms, and it is free. Discover AuthorU, where authors go to become seriously successful. Join AuthorU today at AuthorU.org.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Okay, so where do you start? You want to speak, not sure how. I mean, there's lots of ways to get your feet wet. Certainly Toastmasters, great resource. The National Speakers Association, that wherever you live in the country, there may be a chapter close to you. I want to throw out a caveat here because you can get caught up in a lot of things. You can spend a lot of money really fast. And I don't think you have to. But you have to get your toe in the water where you're going to, start in this process. And you'll hear a lot of people say, boy, I used to be on the National NSA board and I ran one of their big conferences. I was president of the Northern California chapter. That it is so easy to get caught up in some of the hype. And I'm really serious when I say this, that you kind of can get your vision a little cloudy and that you need to be realistic about what's right for you. And I remember one morning waking up and I'm saying, it was like this conversation, okay, princess, you can be really successful at NSA and run this and do that, or you can focus on your career, which was speaking. And I chose to start withdrawing and just focus on my career, which was, for me, the right decision to do, and certainly for my family and everything else that I did do. But what it starts with when you're putting together a speaking career is that you need a game plan, all right? So when we talk about the game plan, that each speech you do, each workshop you do should have its own separate game plan. And one of the sections would be, okay, so what's this theme? What's this all about? Is every speech going to be the same? Or are you a jack or Jill of all trades that you really have a lot of topics that you excel in? Now, there's another caution that it's really important to understand what your expertise is and what brought you to the party to bring you that expertise. If you're someone who, I remember someone saying, oh, anyone can be an expert. All you have to do is read 30 books. And I'm going, really? Do you really believe that? I have one of my clients who has written a wonderful book called Fraud Points. And it deals with embezzlements and theft in a small business. And that it's a unique book. She went through $1 million embezzlement too. And from a trusted friend who was the bookkeeper accountant. And that there are so many warning signs from the yellow flag is up and it's been waving a long time, but for whatever reason, you didn't pay any attention to it. And even the red flag has come down a couple of times, but for whatever reason, that hasn't been in play either. So what we're doing is that for Cheryl, her concern was she had only gone one semester to a community college. Who would believe her? She didn't have a master's. She didn't have an MBA. She didn't have a doctorate. She didn't have any of the fancy dancy alphabet soup behind her name. Who would listen to her? And I said to her, I would in a nanosecond, because you've been in the trenches. Your doctorate is in life, in survival, in coming out of this and putting together a game plan to protect your company so it'll never happen again. And now you're telling other people about it. I would not want to listen to someone who had read a few books and know how this. No, I want someone who has really experienced it, who really knows what that anger feels like, that sense of betrayal, and the devastation, the destruction to your health, sometimes to your family members, to other people in your community, your employees, that dominoing factor that when fraud goes wild, that's what would count. So whatever your expertise is, where it came from, that's what you're going to share. So we go back to the game plan, and that's going to be those will become key points. So what's the theme about? What are the key elements? What are the 3, the 5, the 7, the 10, depending upon how long you're doing it, whether it's a keynote or a workshop. The difference is that a keynote, that you've got the whole gang, the whole group's there. Workshops or segments of maybe that whole group. Or maybe there's much more activity and interaction in a workshop where keynote is really kind of you on stage, revealing, sharing, guiding through it without putting them to work that a workshop might do. So what are the key points? Then the next thing you have to really think about is, all right, and I always tell people, this is so critical, who should be sitting in the seat listening to you? Who? Not everybody. For Cheryl, it would be that I was telling you about the author of fraud points. It would be individuals who had experienced fraud and want to know what to do, or it would be people who are operating a small business. All right, I'm a visual person, so I use sticky notes, Post-it notes, whatever you call them, and I start writing this stuff down, and I visually lay it out because I like the way I can move them around and kind of get in the order, their sequence, and then have them that way. But who? And it could be lots of who's. All right, then where do the who's hang out? Because why would you want to know that? Because you got to market your expertise, your program. Where are they on them? And then ask, what stories do you have to support them? Do you have a lot? Hopeful, because stories started out. And in fact, when you start a program, a speech, you will know that stories or unbelievable statistics become the grabbers and bring them into play. So what do you have? And what you want to work out is you develop those. They are choreographed. You want to really know that opening story, and you want to know your closing story. The others you can work through, but you really want to have that tight and flow with it as you go along. All right, marketing. So how are you going to market? You're going to get on the phone and smile and dial? Are you going to show up at places? Are you going to do lots of freebies, hoping, anticipating that there's individuals there that can hire you and bring it together? If you're a business book or a book that would relate to individuals in the corporate related world, the general, that great places to start as a freebie would even be like Kiwanis and Rotary, to get your toe in the water, to practice and get it going, because you know what? There are often individuals that are affiliated with other companies and associations that say, you know what, we need to hear this. I want to refer you to Sam or Susan because we're looking and building our program. That's one thing that you really do want to look at. But where else? There are all kinds of directories. And, when I started in this business, we didn't have the Google. I'm going back to the early 80s. We didn't have the Googles. We had to get out there and meet people. Or sometimes you could buy directory. We didn't have online capability, but you could start doing this and you smiled and you dialed. Or you could develop in my book, How to Create a $1 Million Speech. There is a gold mine chapter that I would absolutely say, that shred it, pull it out. But this is the one that you're going to be reading over and over again. And the chapter is called The Glory of Postcards. And it was the number one way that I marketed, was with postcard marketing. And I had a very distinct strategy and position I did with it as I went through it, but it was the number one way. Hugely successful. So successful that I recall, and I would leave postcards behind, by the way, at gigs in the seat. Besides with my handout, there would be a postcard that kind of asked for, do you know anybody who would be interested? I that's not the language that was on it, but we were asking for referrals on postcards. Can you believe that 30 years after I put a postcard out, I actually got one back 30 years later, and it said, "Are you still speaking on this topic? If you are, would you call me?" Wow! Postcards have legs, and sometimes they root in. People keep them. So anyway, think about that. How are you going to market it? Where you need to go? And then here's the other thing. You really need to have a talk with yourself. Why are you the person that they would hire? Why would a meeting planner, someone who is president of a group, or a professional who does event planning, why would they want to hire you versus somebody else? What makes you the real pro? It's so important in this process going on. All right. And then what are the resources that you're going to need to pull this off? It's always important to understand that. And what about images? Do you have any images of you speaking, even practicing? I mean, you can do some of this as a dummy, and back and front of it. And that, in fact, before we run over our next break, I wanted to mention I do have one of my in person, first time this year, in person, June 25th and 26th, here in Denver, Colorado, the Judith Briles Speaking Intensive. One of the things that we're going to be doing on Friday the 25th is we have a photographer there, wonderful author photographer, and you can have professional photos done. But one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to pull the group all together. We're going to put a mic in everybody's hand, and then we're going to take some shots, like tight shots, that you're in front of an audience that you could use on your website, on marketing and things to show, even for the green people, the newbie people that are just out there. How cool is that? All right, much more when we come back. This is Judith Briles. It's AuthorU, your guide to book publishing.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, with your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Discover the power of you and your book at the Judith Briles Unplugged events. Each summer, Judith Briles Book Marketing Unplugged unfolds over 3 intensive days working with just Judith. You get publishing strategies, author and book platforms, book marketing panache and pizzazz, and authoring tools to take you and your book to rock star success. In the fall and winter, Judith Briles Speaking Unplugged includes Judith as your coach and mentor during 2 powerful days. You will learn how to structure a speech, how to create openings and closings, how to find gigs that pay you and sell your books, and you will get one-on-one coaching. Go to thebookshepherd.com and click on the Events tab to learn how to participate at the next Unplugged Workshop event.
Congratulations on getting your book published. The effort you put into your work is truly commendable. But what's next? What will happen to all the knowledge you have worked so hard to acquire to produce your book? Here at TogiNet Radio, we can provide you a platform to keep your knowledge working for you through the power of podcast. The subjects our podcasts cover are as varied as the grains of sand on a beach. From life coaching to military resources to business success, even to the paranormal. We have a place for everyone. To get started on your next step, call Scott at 903-787-5880 or email him at scott@toginetradio.com. That's SCOTT at TOGINETRADIO.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Coming up, you'll hear more about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
One of the things that consistently comes up is And I always ask my clients that I'm working with, and I all of a sudden in the middle of a conversation with them, I'll go ring, 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 ring. Hello, this is Susan Smith. I'm with the Crony Association, and we have a conference coming up, and I'd like to know if you're available on May 2nd and what your fees are. They're stumped when I do something like that because they hadn't thought about charging. And someone said to me the other day, $300, $400? What do you think? No. All right. So depending upon your market you're going to, schools are always going to be less, unless you're on the college circuit, unless you are in where they bring you in under student activities for the bigger kids that are going into adulthood. After that, schools are a challenge, and you're not going to get a lot of money. That it's going to be a lesser amount. You might sell some books for sure on that, and that we did a show not too long ago with Jane Wood on how to get your books into schools. Which I would, if you're writing kids books, you absolutely need to listen to that show and look into our inventory of shows that are available and find how to get books into schools. But with that said, most associations, if you're only charging a few $100s, you've already said you're you're a newbie and you don't know. This is where thousands of dollars come into play. And depending upon who you are, whether you're a celebrity or there's massive news about you, or you've got a mark already out there, that you're going to come down and you'll be looking at, it could be as low as $1,500. It could be many thousands of dollars. It could be, once you really get going, you could get up into 5 figures. All right. And the celebrities go way over that. This is not what we're talking about. But you have to realize this is a business. And I can tell you what I mentioned when we first started the show, that I had converting 2 solid days, 16 hours, cutting it to 9 hours total, that it took me over 100 hours to put that together, to create new slides, to do all that. There is, I always estimated for every hour I'm speaking, I will have 6 to 8 hours of prep time before I get in front of a group. So there's time. Don't just think, but it's just a 45-minute speech. It's just a 50-minute speech. It's just a 2-hour workshop. Get "it's just" out of your vocabulary and your mindset. It is your expertise you're bringing to the party. It is whether you have earned it through degrees, whether you have earned it in the trenches, a combination, whatever brought you to the party, that it's taken a long time to do it. Don't undervalue that. Please don't undervalue that. So what do you charge when you come out of the gate? I wouldn't, if I was a newbie coming out, and if I was talking about something that was business related, if I was talking about self-help, if I was talking about personal development, I wouldn't consider coming out of the gate for under $2,500 for a presentation, plus expenses to get you there and back and fed and taken care of. And all that. Now, what happens if they say, but geez, we've never paid anyone over $500? Okay, here's your script. And that did I speak for free? Absolutely. Absolutely. I have things that I'm passionate about and hard about, and that I would support. And I do this to the day, especially in the publishing. I do a huge amount, but I know I'm going to sell books. So all of a sudden it starts changing the dynamics and the percentages with that. So when you do that, and someone says, well, we've never paid anyone over $500, or we've never paid under $1,000, so we don't have $2,500 in a budget. Here's what I would say back. Well, you've you want me to make a donation of $1,500 for your group. If I do you for $1,000, what will I get in return for my donation? And then you be silent. You go quiet with that. You will be amazed at some of the things that people come up with. I got a computer one time. Sometimes they may have a publication that goes out and all of a sudden you're on the back cover. You could have a main spread feature on that. So there's different things that can happen that they may be able to pull favors in to get advantage of you. I also, every speaking gig I had, I always made a donation back to the group. And I always gave anywhere from 10 to 15% of any books that were sold on site to the group, the participants. I always gave a percentage back. So I'd ask, is there a scholarship? Do you have a special fundraising going on? Is there anything I could do that, money might help support? And here's why I did that. Because it's a good thing to do, number one. But number two is the person, my introducer, would always say something like this. Look, Judith's going to be with us all day. Make sure you go back at her and talk to her and meet her in person at her book table. And by the way, she is donating to our special scholarship fund for every book that's sold. It was great. It was great. So that's the kind of thing that you want to, have as part of your game plan. That's part of the game plan. And doing that and putting that together. And so that's what I did. And the contract, there's also the contract. So the cost of speaking, come up with a price tag. And if there is no resistance, increase it. You can also, here's another tip. I would suggest you go online and identify, if you should have done this in the get-go, what other speakers are out there like you talking about your field? Who are they? How long have they been doing it? Look at their websites. Now, rarely do they put what their speaking fees are on their websites, but see what they have, because you need to have a special website for speaking. And we'll come back to that before we leave you today within our hour. And have that as it comes back. So what is that that they have that gets them higher than you don't? Hopefully nothing. But you have to realize this is what planners are looking at. People who are hiring speakers, the first thing they do is they go online. And they may not say, what's your website? They assume you have a website, and they assume it's going to have your name on it. So it could be Susan Smith author, could be Susan Smith speaker, or maybe Susan Smith was ahead of the game. She grabbed the Smith name. Good for her. But you want to make sure that your name is in there. So it's searchable and you are findable versus invisible in that process. So in that, on your area that you've got, this is the way you want to see what they're doing. Now, you can then go for putting in those competitors' names and put speaking after it. And maybe association, maybe companies, maybe something like that to see where this person has been. Sometimes they have a calendar and they let you know where they've been. And depending upon the group, the association, or a corporate area, that will tell you very quickly that this person is 3,500, 5,000, 7,500 in that area. Now, I think you blind yourself. You think you're coming out of the gate that, well, that person's charging $7,500. I'm going to be charging $7,500. You have to earn it. You have to earn it. You have to earn that right. In fact, we all need to earn the right to be on the platform, because it's the privilege of it. To share your information, to connect with people, to influence their lives, to make a difference, to pull them out of a rut, to do the redirections. That's a privilege to be part of that and make a difference. a privilege. So your fee, find out what the competitors are doing. Now, you can go into speaking bureaus. There's a lot of speaking bureaus. Now, a lot of them just handle celebrities, but that's okay. Go into some speaking bureaus and put in your competitor's name and put speaking bureau. See what pops up. Do you know that often speaking bureaus would put a range? It could be from 3,000 to 5,000, 5,000 to 75, 5,000 to 10. That will give you some ballparks to work with, so you know what to charge. When should you start charging? Today. So many feel that they have to have their book out before they can reach out and start marketing and going to groups. No, you need to understand, in the association market, which is what I primarily spoke to and with, they are planning a year out, 2 years out for their big programs. You need to think that far out. My calendar was always booked out a year and a half. Now, let's talk website a little bit. So we come to the website. What is it you need? You need a very specific tab on your website that is dedicated to speaking. And as I said just a few minutes ago, meeting planners assume you have one. They assume that you have one, or whoever represents you has one with you on it, that you are findable. And with that, we're going to take our next break. I'm Judith Briles. I'm the author of How to Create $1 Million Speech. More to come.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, with your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Are you confused about publishing options? Do you know which printing option is best for your book? Does your stomach flip when you think about selling books? Or do you feel overwhelmed with what to do about book marketing and publicity? Get the answers and much more. Get them, and from someone who knows publishing inside and out, from both the traditional and independent sides, how to make a successful book. You can't do it alone without paying the price. You can spend your money creating a book that turns out to be so-so, or you can create a book that looks and feels classy, builds your brand and platform, and is a success, a bestseller. It is your choice. You choose. If you want author and publishing success, you want Judith Briles as your book coach. Sign up for her weekly blogs and e-zine at thebookshepherd.com. The book shepherding concept is simple. The publishing world is changing, and so must you. You need an experienced shepherd and guide to collaborate with you as you create, strategize, develop, publish, and achieve your publishing goals. Publishing is riddled with obstacles, sometimes nightmares for the author. You do not need more problems. You want solutions. Dr. Judith Briles will shepherd you through the maze and chaos. At times, she has had to step in and rescue a book that has been sabotaged by a publisher, by a publishing service provider, and sometimes even by the author. If you want author and book success, connect with her today at thebookshepherd.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
in our last segment, I want to dig into the website, a little bit of the structure, but also remind you, don't forget, Denver, June 25th, 26th, I'll be doing in person, live, 2 intensive days, the Judith Briles Speaking Unplugged. It is limited. I only max 30 people can attend it. I know it's over half full, and that as you get there, you will find so much, besides great to see people again, from the camaraderie, but also the intensive and how-tos. Everyone is hot-seated. Get ready for that one. You're all hot-seated. You have a very extensive workbook. You'll be working directly with me, coaching you in front of other people. So it's a fun, fun weekend. Details, all you have to do is go to thebookshepherd.com, click on the tab that says Experiences. It's the first one. Click on it. You'll see the details. Scroll down. Get signed up pronto. All right. Your website. What do you need to make it snap, crackle, and pop? You need a lot of stuff on it. And you have to ask yourself, is your website noticeable? Does it clearly say who you are? Does it reveal when you want a meeting planner to know about you? All this and more needs to be up front, immediately on that tab on your website. And I think it's a great idea to do a short video for your various tabs on your website. You talking to whoever that person is who has clicked on it. And when I say short, less than 2 minutes, that you tell them about speaking, what it means to you, what your goal is for the audience, what you want them to take away, how you make a difference. You can mention very quickly what your topics are. One of the best advice I had from a meeting planner when I was doing a redesign on my website that was exclusively for speaking at that time, and that it was all in paragraph form. And she said, pull it out and do it in bullet points. When I go to your website, I want to see what your expertise is and what you're speaking on in seconds. So give me, like, I would be conflict resolution, communication, and snafus, those kind of things that as soon as I can see it, I know instantly whether or not I want to pursue further. Don't make me work too hard. I never forgot that advice. And we immediately changed how we set up our homepage. All right. So they want to know about you on your website. So you're going to have that about you. You're going to have a blog, I'm assuming. You may have a media tab with press releases, etc. But you need this speaker tab. And the items is when you're looking at this, I'm going to ask you just some questions here. Is your name immediately visible when the site opens? Is your website easy to navigate, or does it take a gazillion seconds to get it to open up? Remember that human beings have a less attention span than a goldfish. They get 8 seconds, all right? Does a planner know quickly what you offer? Can a planner determine if you do keynotes or workshops, trainings, consulting, webinars, what? Do you have a bio that's compelling? Do you have a one sheet, your brag sheet, that says this is what you are, this is who you are? Has a few testimonials on it. And I like to see testimonials maybe from a participant as well as from a meeting planner on that. I include introductions, that they can download introductions on it. I have a questionnaire that I send meeting planners that will tell me more about the potential audience, including what's the gender, the percentage of genders, what's the ages, are there any taboos that I need to stay away from in there. Do you have photos on it? And you always want to make sure you have color and black and white, high resolution are there. Do you have any references on it that they can reach out to? Or do you have something that says references of with other meeting planners are immediately available upon request on that? Do you have some titles? I like to see someone with this kind of a format. I like to see a title of a talk. And I think one of your titles should be the title of your book. the title of the talk. I want to have a sentence or two that kind of gives the essence of what it's about. And then anywhere from 3 to 5 bullets of what the audience participants will take away. And then the next topic. Is there a short video clip or a reel? And we're talking less than 5 minutes here. Do you have, so what do you have there on there? And you could have it in this page or at the very end of your website, certainly a contact you. And please make this easy. The contact, certainly you could have what so many do is just, what's your name, what's your email, what's your phone number, and what's the message? What are you trying to reach me about? I would like you to take it a step further and put your name to the side of that, your phone number, your email, and your snail mail address. So they can reach you quickly, because I'm telling you, sometimes planners, they could have had a falling out with a speaker. That speaker, there could have been an accident, there could be an illness, who knows, or maybe a program is being put together so fast their heads are spinning. They need to get a hold of you like today. Not everyone checks all their messages every day. You need to be so findable, so accessible, and not hiding behind any screens. So that's for your contact page. I think it's really important for you to have that. So those are website areas that you want to have in there. Also, it is absolutely essential, and this is why I tell everyone, for heaven's sakes, if you don't have my book, go get, How to Create a $1 Million Speech. Chapter 14 is all about your contract. You need a contract. Now, I spent a lot of money with an attorney putting together a contract. I'm giving it to you in the book. And what I did is I went through and broke it up to explain why this paragraph is in it, besides to protect you and make sure you get paid on that. Now, in the opening of it, I really state what my requirements are. I let them know what type of microphone I want, and it's not going to be a label type. But my preference is a handheld mic, wireless today. In the old day, but I can deal with a cord that goes a gazillion feet too. You learn very quick how to throw those things over. You loop them and you throw them over your shoulders so they become a tail trail and you don't trip on it going back and forth. But my preference is to have a handheld microphone because it's more powerful and it becomes part of how I'm interacting. I don't like lavaliers. Lavaliers are primarily meant for men, have ties and things in the center. Unless you wear a high turtleneck, part of your costume, your speaking costume, if you want to call it for that, that you're probably going to have some skin showing underneath your neck. Where are you going to put that microphone? It's going to be to the side on some piece of material or cloth, whether it's a jacket or a dress or an open blouse. And that means that if you turn your head opposite it, your voice goes weak. So I like a handheld mic because it follows my mouth when I am talking. It's my preference. You may have a different preference, but state what your preference is. I also stated that, I want to have a small pitcher of hot water accessible and available to me on that. I mentioned fee. Now, by the way, we talked earlier about, so what if they say they don't have what your fee is and you agree to do it anyway? In the contract, I would say Judith's normal fee is $5,000. She's agreed to reduce yours to $1,500 so they see they're getting a deal. I want to remind them, you're this kind of speaker, special occasion, you're doing those kind of things. I want my contract that tells me where the gig is. What's the name of the association? Who is my primary contact? What's their mobile number? I need to know backup for all these things in the process. I let them know when the handouts will be coming to them. I'll let them know what their responsibility is for them. And I never rented a car. I mean, I get GPS lost. I want someone to pick me up to get me where I'm staying and what hotel it is. And if the gig is at a hotel, I want to stay in that hotel as well. And I always said, when in my contract, it even said never above the 8th floor. And you know why? Because fire ladders can't go above the 8th floor. And then I had a cancellation clause. If they canceled 4 months in front of an event, they had still owed me 100% of the fee. And I always required a 50% deposit. No exceptions, 50% deposit with the balance due the day I'm there, plus whether airfare expenses or anything like that. So that was the contract. That's chapter 14 and how to create $1 million speech. Now, lastly, before we exit, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the structure. What's your theme? Opening story. What are your key points? Each key point, you could have a story, you could have a statistic, you could have an activity that goes with it. I like to open with a statement of the key point, go through whatever I'm doing, and then I wrap up with a restatement of what the key point is before I go to the next. Each one comes that way. So it's a sandwich. You're opening and you're closing. Opening and closing. And then your structure of your key points, the stories, the stats, information, activity, or exercise to support that so it sticks, and you move on from there. And with that, we're at the end of our show, if you can believe this. So I hope you were able to take away some of the things that we've done. Do go to the show page at bit.ly/book publishing podcast to select from over 300 other podcasts. We'll be with you next week.
Thank you for being a part of Your Guide to Book Publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. Each week, a variety of publishing pros will deliver insights and strategies to take you, the author, to the next level. You'll learn tips and secrets on how to create, strategize, develop, publish, and achieve book publishing success by making one very simple change in your book's journey. How to avoid the publishing predators. How to create an author and book platform that rocks. Learn how to make a living with your words and your books. Learn how to publish a book that has no regrets, and so much more. For more information, check out AuthorU-Your, where authors who want to be seriously successful go. And Judith's website, thebookshepherd.com. Then join us again here next week for more. It's Your Guide to Book Publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. Brought to you by AuthorU and the Book Shepherd. Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific on the Rockstar Radio Network.